So what's this one about?
This one is about a cemetery.
Oh.
Oh, near Albany.
Oh, finally.
Yeah, we get to talk about a haunted cemetery.
Mm-hmm.
Extremely haunted.
Oh.
Not as haunted as another one we've talked about in one of our Patreon episodes. Wink, wink, nod, nod.
Okay, yeah. So lay down at least $5.
Yeah. Welcome to Unearthly Upstate.
Welcome once again.
This is Mari.
And this is Matthew.
Today we're going to talk about Forest Hill Cemetery.
Mm-hmm. And where's Forest Hill located?
It's out near the Albany area.
Oh, okay.
And this one is actually kind of infamous because Life magazine once proudly listed this cemetery as in one of the top 10 most haunted places in the country.
Ooh. So all you people who are waiting for this program to get more scary, well, here's your chance.
Yes. This cemetery is so haunted. There is a portal to hell, a headless, bloody statue, and a mausoleum where the bodies have disappeared. Dun, dun, dun.
Well, the bodies have disappeared. Well, that's odd.
Yeah.
I don't know why I don't know why someone would want to steal the bodies out of your mausoleum.
That's the big question. Mm-hmm. Where did they go? Well, I'm going to give you some more examples.
Was it during a time when people were carrying fresh cadavers out to the universities to be cut up?
No, because the cemetery was actually made after that.
Oh, okay.
After that, fad's the wrong word.
Well, there was no longer a need. There was no longer an industry.
Yeah. There we go.
No longer an industry in fresh cadavers.
So I'm going to give you some examples of this haunting at the Forest Hill Cemetery. These are from hauntedplaces.org.
Okay.
And I'm going to use the names that were left on the website. So the first one's from Amber. I've been there so many times. I'm not a believer per se, but I remember one of the last nights I went and saw something in the tree by the mausoleum. It was a dark mass, and when I looked, I felt sick. It was the weirdest feeling ever.
End quote?
Yep. Next one's from Lexi. This is not the full thing. I cut it down. And so this one's been edited. We walked through the actual cemetery, nothing too unusual, except for a few cold spots here and there, and the feeling of being watched. And then we went to the abandoned cathedral, and this is where things got really freaky. As soon as we walked into the cathedral, the temperature dropped as if it was winter. There were pentagrams on the wall, and out of the corner of my eye, I'd seen a black shadow. I decided to get out of there because my gut was telling me to. When we got back to the car, I was looking through the pictures. I had taken, and clear as day, a white figure was guarding the gate. If you zoomed in, it almost looked like a wolf. In another angle, maybe a headpiece, maybe a native. It was very creepy. And also, more about the mausoleum. A lot of people reported when they get there. The one girl called it the cathedral. What she meant was the mausoleum.
Oh, okay. Well, a mausoleum that was cathedral style. Maybe.
Exactly.
Okay. Pentagrams on the walls.
Well, the pentagrams on the walls have pretty much been explained away. There was probably other urban explorers there with nefarious plans, and they spray painted it. But anyway, a lot of people do report a heavy presence in the mausoleum. Mm-hmm. And again, where are the bodies?
Okay.
Yeah. So.
It depends on the style of mausoleum. Now, is this the kind of, without knowing anything about the architecture of this particular mausoleum, is it the style that where the bodies are interred inside the wall, or are they in sarcophaguses on the floor?
I'll explain.
Okay.
I'll explain. I'll get to that. Okay. Well, the cemetery is Forest Hills. It's also known as Pine Woods.
Oh, okay.
Forest Hills, I think, is his more famous name. It's located just outside Troy, New York. Mm-hmm. It is closed to the public, and for very good reason. These people were giving their accounts, should not have been there.
Well, yeah, people abused.
People have abused this cemetery pretty badly, yes.
And so, and because it's near a city like Albany, and there's plenty of opportunity.
People, even though it is closed, it doesn't stop urban explorers, legend trippers, and the curious to ignore the no trespassing signs and sneak in. And if you look on Google Maps, the no trespassing signs are pretty obvious. The place has got like heavy chains across the front, and there are no trespassing. People want you out of it. They don't want you in there, and for good reason. Okay. Other things I found was like inside the cemetery, people can get really confused. Some explorers report being lost, but suddenly find themselves by the main gates. Others swear the landscape changes around them. So is that another reason why they keep the people out?
I think if people are getting disoriented and losing their way, do they divulge what kind of state of mind they're in?
From some of the accounts I read, swear up and down sober.
Really? Okay.
No smoking, no imbibing, nothing.
No, okay.
But they would still get kind of lost as they were in there. And really, this cemetery isn't that big. It's a smaller cemetery. Well, a lot of it's been eaten up by a golf course. So
that's too bad.
Before everyone freaks out, there were no bodies buried where the golf course took over. I'm going to give you a little history of the place, okay? A group of wealthy Troy citizens in 1897 came together to purchase the land that would become Forest Park Cemetery. They chose 200 acres. It was a beautiful spot with rolling hills, natural streams, and it already had a graveyard. So they're already heading that way. The plans of these citizens was to create a cemetery that would rival the famous Oakwood Cemetery in Troy. The first thing they had to do was provide the proper drainage to the land. Unfortunately, that's where most of the money for the cemetery went. They did build a large receiving tomb, and the money started to dry up, which is a shame because we never got to see the full plans of the designer, a Garrett Baltimore, the first black graduate of Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute. So there would have been a wonderful first if they would have finished the cemetery. They never had a chance to even finish
How they run out of money because was it the infrastructure for the drainage was such a burden that they ran out of money.
Rolling hills and streams. Can you imagine what it was like in the spring?
Oh yes, yeah. It washed those graves right out.
Kind of lack of planning on their part too. This is a beautiful spot, but not checking what it was like.
But not a great place for a graveyard.
Not a great place for a graveyard. Yes. By 1914, the incorporation went bankrupt. But by 1918, the investors from New York City and Chicago tried to complete the cemetery. But by the 1930s, they were also bankrupt. So this poor cemetery really never got off the ground. I mean, the receiving tomb was built. Some of the landscape was done, but like I said, they put most of the money into the drainage, which really wasn't working. And nobody could really keep it up.
Well, it's a shame.
And I'm very careful to say receiving tomb.
Oh, yeah.
It's not a mausoleum. Some people are going, well, so there's a big difference between the two. A mausoleum is a large structure to intern one or more persons. Okay. A receiving tomb is designed to temporarily store bodies during the winter months when the ground is too hard to dig a grave. And that explains where the bodies are. They were only there in the winter.
That's right.
They're buried in the cemetery. There are no people interned in the large structure.
So the receiving tomb was mistaken for a mausoleum.
Or a cathedral, as one of them put it.
And that's where the missing body story came from.
Right.
That makes sense.
Yes, it does. What about the headless statues? Easy.
Vandalism. Yeah.
Same as the pentagrams. Same as some of the other stuff you find. People just being jerks, not respecting the place.
Yeah.
And there are more than one headless statue there. One is a praying angel. She's missing her head. There's a couple others. The angel statue that bleeds, it's actually a type of moss that if it gets wet, just looks like it's bleeding, but it's the moss doing that. But what about the portal of hell? Well, people call the entrance of the cemetery the gates to hell. So the gates to hell, portal to hell. Oh yeah, it's got to be in there somewhere. Sorry, there's no sulfur. There's no portal to hell.
Oh, what a disappointment. Gosh.
Yeah, you want to hear some more disappointment? Remember that Life magazine article?
Yeah, I remember you mentioned it at the beginning of the episode.
Never happened. There was no Life magazine article. There was no article of that type ever that mentioned, except now on the internet, you will get people mention this is part of the 10 most haunted places in America. Why? Because Life magazine said so, but Life magazine never published that article.
There never was an article. And that's the real ghost, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah. So here we have this cemetery giving you amazing stories. Oh, the hauntings in this place are amazing.
Oh, yeah.
but you can't go visit it. Guess why? Too many people going in there, ripping heads off statues. Too many people in there going in there and spray painting pentagrams. Too many people getting lost and having to call the cops to help them out. There is an explanation why they're getting lost. Because the grounds were not finished. Some places of that cemetery, it's easy to get lost because what you would normally use as directional markers as you're walking, I mean, most cemeteries are set out in a nice grid pattern, and usually they're set out, you got one lawn area, it's set out with its, graves, and there's usually a path or a driveway that separates them from another one. But there's all these visual markers, and you can figure out how to get back to the entrance.
Right.
But using those visual markers, like the roads or how the graves are laid out. This place was never finished, so some of those visual markers aren't there, and if you're in a certain part of the cemetery, you're going to get lost.
Yeah.
Because if you get turned around and you can't figure out how to get back to the main entrance, and you're looking for a common thing, like where's the road, where's these rows, they're not there. You might have better luck finding the golf course and walking out that way.
Yeah, exactly.
But no, people do, it is closed off. Now, most cemeteries in New York State, the law is between dawn and dusk, they're supposed to be open. They don't even open this one during dawn or dusk because of the vandalism, because of the damage done. So this is
That's too bad for the people who have relatives
I'm sure
who are buried there. And
I'm sure they can get special permission to go in, but they just can't, stop on a whim and go visit.
They have a groundskeeper there.
Well, you got to call. I think you got to call whoever is in charge of the cemetery. Probably somebody in the city, and let you in.
I suppose if you were to access photographs online of the place, it probably I don't know. Parts of it might be very overgrown.
Well, let me check. Find a Grave will probably have some good ones. No, it's really sad how they had to keep people away from the cemetery due to the urban spelunk, the urban explorers and that. And that's kind of the sad thing about legend tripping. Most legend tripping, it's pretty benign. You can, you go kind of scare yourself a bit. Take part of the legend in the area. But then you get people who will show up and just totally disrespect the area that this cemetery or whatever this is in. Oh, there's a lot of Forest Hill cemeteries. Not the one I want. Well, that was a bust.
All right.
I'm going to look at the other one, other name. And they go to these places and they just trash them.
Yeah.
I mean, there's been urban explorers who kind of complained about this on YouTube, too. You walk into it and, all they've done is pornographic graffiti all over, and done really stupid stuff instead of, hey, leave the structure alone. First of all, a lot of these structures, especially urban explorers, you're already going into a dangerous situation. You don't know if the floor is going to go through. You don't know. I mean,
absolutely, there are some of those.
You don't know if there's squatters in there.
That I really cringe for when they go walking into a place that's got, the structure is questionable.
Yeah.
Ignorant people coming into these cemeteries with the intent of spray painting and knocking heads off and, that sort of thing.
It's not in Find a Grave. So they haven't even done a survey of the cemetery there. So that's interesting, because Find a Grave usually has got majority of cemeteries in the United States. Wow, that was an interesting little
Perhaps
side.
they haven't even put in a request or to go in there and do a survey. Perhaps they got rejected.
Well, no, Find a Grave is usually the cemeteries themselves put it up, so whoever probably is trustees of this cemetery probably didn't put it up because probably afraid it's going to attract more people that would vandalize it. And really, that's, like I said, that's the sad part of the legend tripping part is people that do this. I mean, this place is reputed to be haunted and everything, and I could see why you want to go there and try to check it out yourself. But I just don't understand the mentality of you have to go one step further, and you have to damage the area.
I know.
That always bothered me.
So disrespectful.
That always bothered me. First of all, if you really believe this place is haunted, and you think damaging it, what, don't you think that the ghosts are going to be ticked off at you and follow you home and just ruin your life after that? Okay?
Exactly.
I mean, the people that go in there and rip off the heads of these statues, I hope there are vengeful ghosts out there, and it's made their life a living hell, because, my God,
How'd you like it if somebody were to, stomp on your grave?
Well, I'm not too worried about it. I'm going to be cremated. But I still would come back as a vengeful ghost if somebody, intentionally did something to my resting place,
Yeah, exactly.
As much as I don't believe in that type of afterlife, I personally, I'm sorry, I don't want to go into my personal beliefs, but basically...
We try to avoid personal beliefs and politics on this program as much as possible.
Well,
but sometimes it snakes in.
But in the case of that, I might change my opinion and come back and haunt somebody. I mean, technically, if you're going to ruin mine, And it's also sad that they had grand plans for this cemetery.
Yeah, it sounds like they did.
They didn't really think it through.
But it got all the money for it got eaten up in the development stage.
Exactly. And I would love to have seen the plans of the architect that designed it.
Yeah.
I would like to find out more about him. But I didn't
just
find much
another
about.
unrealized vision.
Yeah.
In central New York.
Yeah, and hey, how progressive for them. 1897, hiring a black architect. How progressive. I mean, that right there shows a big, change in attitude. I mean, the Civil War was only, 30 years prior? Yes, New York was a Union state, but interesting fact, there's a city in New York that didn't relinquish their Confederacy. Yes. They actually voted to join the Confederacy.
Oh, that one county out there in western
yeah, it was a
New
small
York.
Little town in western New York. I can't think of the name of it right now, but it actually took Eisenhower to ask them politely, we just went through World War II. Maybe
He just didn't bother to do it.
Maybe it's time to join the Union again. So...
How many presidential elections did they vote in since the end of the war?
Here's the funny part is the city voted to join the Confederacy with one vote. It was very divided, and one vote won. But then after the war was done, they never thought of was it legally binding? And everybody kind of ignored it. And then here comes World War II, and it's this embarrassment little vignette of this little fact of this city in the middle of New York, a Union state.
Well, the western end.
No, still, it's a Union state, is my point. God, we never took that off our books. And they had to actually get a pardon.
It was, yeah.
I
don't think it was deliberate. It was just an oversight.
Well, yeah.
They just forgot about it.
Yeah, but
I'll bet residents in that area were like, we're the what now?
Yeah, exactly. But it makes a neat little blip of history right then, So going back to my point was, yes, New York was a Union state, but there's an example where it wasn't. There were people who did have sympathies with the Confederacy and things like that. So, yes, we were a major area of the Underground Railroad. I mean, it ran right through this area here where we live,
Well, Niagara was right on the border there.
Yeah,
so,
in that area too. But, Troy and Albany and all that, they weren't as close to the border as where we live now. Yeah. And, in fact, we are planning to go see this one particular, it's a museum now, but it's only open on one day a week. That was an Underground Railroad stop. And so I guess the point I'm trying to make, it was very progressive for them at the time. And if people think
back
just...
to
and if people just think it was because it was a Union state, no, it wasn't cut and dry as that. That's the point. Long-winded, a little bit of interesting facts in there, but that's the point I'm trying to make. And it's really sad we never got to see his full plans.
And there's your political moment on our earthly upstate.
Yes.
There you are.
We are Union and proud.
But what sort of ghostly experiences then did some people have while they're? I mean, other than that one account.
Well, pretty much all the same. I know on one of our Patreon episodes we talk about another cemetery that had hellhounds, and the closest you get to this one is not so much a hellhound. People do see a wolf, but most of the time they just see the wolf's head, and that's why that one said was it a Native American wearing a wolf's head, because they only see the head, but it doesn't seem to be. It seems more like a taxidermy or a headdress or something.
Really?
It doesn't seem like it's an animal, which is an interesting twist. I mean, with the portal to hell and the missing bodies.
Oh, the portal to hell. I'm more interested in that.
It's the gates. People call them the gates to hell, and there is no portal.
Oh, is that? Oh.
No, sorry. We're not going to be able to. We're not able to smell any sulfur. We're in Saratoga Springs and some of those springs there. But
I've had, over there at the springs, I've had some water that tasted like it came from hell.
Yeah.
But, it was sulfury. And this was, imbibed with the intention of to absorb its curative properties.
Yeah.
Give me a break.
Well, Troy's not that far from there.
Yeah, that's true.
So maybe there was a spring there. It smelled like sulfur, and we don't know. I put this one out there as an example of where people can go too far.
Yes.
With the legend tripping. And I don't want people to use our podcast as an excuse to go to some of these areas and be disrespectful.
Well, yeah, I think some people do that legend tripping with nefarious intent because they want to write themselves into the legends, and become part of it.
Well, like I said, if you're going there because you think you're going to see ghosts and you already believe in ghosts, why disrespect it? Because, damn, those ghosts are going to follow you home.
They might, so beware.
That might be a good reason why Michael the doll down in Florida, you have to ask permission to take his picture.
Yeah.
Or bad luck and bad things will follow you. And they have letters from people who apologize for not taking his photo. Yeah, maybe that's a good thing that some of these legends exist like that,
Yeah.
I mean, the other cemetery we talked about, they don't want you trespassing there, and that the legends have kind of worked that in. And I really would love to have seen that with this particular cemetery.
They have many legends that become so strong, they develop a life of their own.
Exactly. And in this case, it just, the cemetery's already fallen apart.
Yeah.
Already never really got a chance to be what it was supposed to be. Mm-hmm. And then gets totally, pretty much destroyed by these tall tales. Yeah. And I feel sorry for the neighbors around that place. Because if you look on Google Maps, the houses are right on top of it. This isn't like the other one we talked about where it was out in the country and the nearest house was half a mile down the road.
Exactly, with a pond nearby.
Yeah, this one is like literally, you got the golf course on one side and you've got basically suburbia around it. And that must just drive them up the wall. People parking their cars and sneaking in there all the time do it. Mm-hmm. And, I get it. I've been on legend tripping things myself. I went out looking for ghosts when I was 18, 19 years old in certain areas. Mm-hmm. But I never would once knock over one of those gravestones. I never would once spray paint anything. Mm-hmm. To me, the experience was enough. I didn't have to leave my mark or be disrespectful to the area.
Absolutely.
And, so this is our little warning story to people out there who think it would be fun to go out there and spray paint or, steal something. Let's take this statue off this head. Don't do it.
Yeah, prepare to run afoul of the authorities if you do so.
Don't do it.
There's a strong possibility that you might.
And if not, I believe in enough ghosts that I hope you get haunted. I really do. I mean, jeez.
One sticks themselves to you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, but that is pretty much it. And sorry, I don't recommend seeing this place. I mean, at all.
For one, you won't be able to gain access.
Exactly. And the police do monitor it really well, and the golf course does monitor it because it butts up against it. So you're risking a night in jail and a heavy fine if you decide it'd be fun. And do learn the difference between a mausoleum and a receiving tomb, especially when you're in the northern area.
If you have no other takeaway from this episode, please
learn the
difference between a mausoleum and a holding place for the corpses.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of receiving tombs, if you do want to get creeped out, there is a wonderful story by H.P. Lovecraft that is about a receiving tomb and a man who gets trapped in it.
We're not going to say anymore. You're going to have to find out yourself.
But I highly recommend it. And receiving tombs to me can be far more creepier than mausoleums because of that story. So, that's it. This is a little bit of a shorter one, but it's more of a cautionary tale. Mm-hmm. And I hope you enjoyed it, really.
Thank you for listening to our Ghastly podcast.
Yeah. Have a good one.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to Unearthly Upstate. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Patreon, and on our webpage. We are on iTunes, Spotify, Spreaker, Stitcher, Podbean, and Google Podcasts. Please like, share, and review, and if you really like us, tell your friends. Unearthly Upstate is an Animated Liar Media production. The show is produced by Matt and Mari Minette, with purring provided by Honey and Lloyd. Research and writing done by Mari Minette. Music is by Kevin MacLeod, licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 3.0 license. Unless stated otherwise in the episode, the places mentioned in the broadcast have not paid or contacted us for any type of promotion. And please check out our webpage for full credit and sources for the episodes.